Hello, today you will be able to hear the story of a man from Reddit. Listen as carefully as possible. Hello, Reddit. I always thought my marriage was strong. 10 years together, a stable job, a spacious house in the suburbs, financial independence. Amanda and I were not a perfect couple, but I thought we both valued our relationship. Over the past few months, I started to notice something strange. Amanda became distant, spent more time out of the house, and her phone was almost never unattended. She changed passwords, avoided eye contact, and sometimes went for a walk without explanation. I could have convinced myself that I was just imagining things, if not for one detail, her indifference. One night, while she was sleeping, I took her phone and unlocked it with her finger. My heart was pounding in my chest as I flipped through her messages. It was all there, dozens of chats with a man named Richard. They discussed their meetings, plans for the future, and exchanged photos that left no room for doubt. I sat there in the dark, holding the damn phone, and felt the rage building inside me. I was not just betrayed, I was made a fool of. The next morning I decided to act. "We need to talk," I said when she came out of the shower. She gave me a quick glance and sensed something in my tone. "About what?" "About your affair." Her face turned pale, but she quickly pulled herself together. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie, Amanda. I saw everything. The messages. The photos." There was silence. She lowered her head and then sighed. "Okay. Yes, I did it. But, you're not going to do anything stupid, are you?" I stared at her, not believing my ears. "You're ruining our marriage and you're worried about what I'll do?" Then she smiled. Not guiltily, not with a sense of pity, but with a challenge. "You know this divorce is going to be messy, John. And you're going to lose." "Lose? Are you serious?" "Yes, I am. Because I have something that could destroy you." I didn't realize what she was talking about until she pulled out her phone and showed me the video. It was me. In a dark room, with some people I barely remembered. It was an old video, from when I was a student, when I got into a stupid situation. Nothing too criminal, but enough to ruin my reputation at work. "If you file for divorce, everyone will see this video," she said coldly. She thought she had me trapped. But she forgot one thing: I never play by someone else's rules. I stood in front of her as if I had been electrocuted. My whole body tensed, my fingers clenched into fists. My heart was beating so loudly that it seemed to fill the whole house. A trap. I was trapped. My first thought was that I was dreaming. Just another nightmare from which I'm going to wake up, curse my imagination, and go make coffee. But her cold, confident gaze left no room for illusions. This is reality. My second thought was to punch the wall. To give free rein to my rage, to let it out so that I don't get torn apart from the inside. She keeps me hooked, threatens me, and doesn't even look scared. I saw the fear on her face when she realized that I knew about her betrayal. But it lasted only a few seconds. She quickly pulled herself together, as if she had been waiting for this moment. And the third thought is that I don't know her. The woman I thought was my wife was no longer the one I had lived with for 10 years. No, she had always been like that. I just didn't notice. I sat down on the couch, trying to put my thoughts in order. "Did you plan this in advance?" I asked, exhaling loudly. She shrugged her shoulders. "I'm just foresight. There are surprises in life." I analyzed her words. She didn't deny it. She didn't even try to hide the fact that she had been preparing for this moment for a long time. This meant that the betrayal was not a mistake. It was not an impulsive affair. She had done it consciously, and this dirt, it existed for a reason. I was seized with cold, almost mathematical anger. The feeling was strange. I used to think I knew what anger was, the kind that comes over you in a wave and makes you break things. But this was something else. It was rage mixed with clarity. I couldn't let her control me. I couldn't let her win. She thought she had me cornered. But the worst mistake you can make in a situation like this is to panic. I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. "You thought the game through well, Amanda. But you underestimated me. Her smile faltered for a second. I stood up. It was clear now. She wants power, control. But I would not give her that pleasure. I knew what to do. I looked at Amanda and tried to figure out when it all went wrong. At what point did she become a woman who looks me in the eye without a shadow of a doubt and threatens to destroy my life? After all, I used to love her. I remembered our first meeting as if it were in another life. We met at university. I was working in a bookstore near the campus, earning extra money by shelving books and discussing literature with random visitors. She walked in one of those evenings when it was raining outside and the store was half empty. I remember the first time I saw her. The rain had left drops in her hair, her thin fingers were flipping through the pages of a book, and there was something different in her eyes. She stopped near a shelf of classics, looked at me, and suddenly asked, "What advice would you give to someone who doesn't believe in happy endings?" I didn't know what to say, but then, instead of saying anything, I just handed her The Great Gatsby. She took the book, looked at it, and smiled mysteriously. "Are you a romantic, John?" It was the first time she said my name. I didn't consider myself a romantic, but from that moment on, I couldn't forget her. We started dating almost immediately. Amanda was different, special. She could charm anyone, was confident, smart, and always knew what to say. She was the kind of woman who walks into a room and everyone looks only at her. I was an ordinary guy, but next to her I felt special. She created the illusion that the whole world belonged only to us. We got married 3 years later. Life with her was like a roller coaster, incredible highs when it seemed that happiness was limitless, and sharp lows when she suddenly disappeared into her thoughts. At the time, I didn't pay attention. Love blinds you. I thought we were a team. But now, standing in front of her, I realized it was a lie. I didn't know who she really was. And now I had to find out. I stood in the living room, looking into the face of the woman I had once loved, and thought about how quickly feelings can turn into cold calculation. Her eyes radiated confidence. She really believed she had me trapped. But I've never been one to accept defeat. At that moment, a plan began to form in my mind. I could not afford to give in. Amanda had dirt in her hands that could destroy my reputation and career. But dirt is just a tool. Its power depends on whether society believes in it. I remembered the words of a lawyer I knew, said once over a glass of whiskey. The problem with dirt is that if you throw it out too soon, it can be useless. The right strategy is to burn the bridge before the enemy gets there. Amanda wanted to control me with this video. But what if it loses its power? The first step is to discredit the dirt. I couldn't just delete the video. She definitely had copies, maybe even sent them to some secret storage. But what if I changed the context? People believe what fits their worldview. If I had been the first to put the story out into the world, I could have changed its interpretation. I imagined what it would look like. I talk about my young mistakes, take responsibility, and confess before the video goes public. Yes, that's me. It was a long time ago. I did something stupid, and I regret it. But we all have a past. If I do this first, the blow she was planning to deliver will turn into an empty gesture. The second step is to make her make the first move. Amanda thought she was in control of the situation, but her main weakness was her own confidence in her invincibility. She didn't expect me to act, not just accept her rules of the game. I had to push her to make a mistake. I knew that she wanted not only to control me, but also to get a favorable divorce. She wouldn't launch an open attack right away as long as she believed I would comply. But what if I start behaving unexpectedly? I smiled at her. "You're really well prepared," I said. "But maybe we can find another way out?" Amanda narrowed her eyes. "I'm listening. If you intend to tell everyone about this video, you do realize that it will be a public war. And who knows what might come out in the process." She pressed her lips together, considering my words. "Are you hinting that you have something on me?" I shrugged my shoulders. "We've been together for 10 years. Do you think I don't know anything?" I saw doubt flicker across her face. The third step is to find her weakness. Everyone has skeletons in their closet. And I knew that Amanda had them too. The only question was, what exactly was she afraid of losing? Her money? Her reputation? Her image as the perfect woman? I had to find out before I could strike back. She thought she was in control of the game. But I had already started rewriting the rules. I didn't wait. After our conversation, I silently gathered my things and walked out the door. Amanda looked at me, watching me leave the house we had lived in for 10 years. There was no regret in her eyes, no fear. She thought she had one. I did not argue. I didn't show any emotion. I just closed the door behind me, threw my bag in the car and drove away. At that moment, I didn't know where I was going. The main thing was not to stay in a place where the air was saturated with lies. A new home. I rented an apartment in an inconspicuous neighborhood. It was a small place on the outskirts of the city, with furniture from the previous tenants, and cracked walls that no one was going to repair. But I didn't care. The main thing was that it was my territory. A place where I could think. The first days seemed unreal. I would wake up in the morning and instinctively reach for the other side of the bed. But there was no one there. The silence was depressing. In the big house where we lived with Amanda, there were always sounds, footsteps, her voice, the TV in the background. And here there was emptiness. I didn't turn on the music. I didn't turn on the TV. I just sat there, staring at the wall, and thought. Alcohol. I have never been one to seek solace at the bottom of a bottle. But the stress was getting to me. I bought my first bottle of whiskey at a bar near my house. I drank a little, just to relax. But then a little more. And then some more. Alcohol gave me a brief relief. For a moment, it drowned out my thoughts. I could distract myself, not think about the fact that the woman I loved had turned into an enemy. I convinced myself that everything was under control. But one day I looked in the mirror and saw a different version of myself, exhausted, with red eyes, unshaven, with an expression of despair that I did not recognize. This was weakness. And I could not afford weakness. I poured the rest of the whiskey down the sink. I had to pull myself together. Because the war wasn't over yet. I knew that Amanda thought she had one. She believed she had me cornered and could now control me with dirt. But that was her biggest mistake. I was going to leave her with nothing. I wanted to destroy her reputation, make her a laughingstock in front of her friends and family, make everyone who had ever thought of her as a decent woman look down on her. And most importantly, I wanted her to lose everything that was so important to her: money, comfort, connections. The first step is preparation. First, I gathered everything I could use against her. I opened old correspondence, looked through financial statements, and searched for her social media accounts. Amanda had always been cautious. She hid her affairs, but people are prone to make mistakes. I found a few little things that weren't evidence in themselves, but hinted at a double life. Photos from parties where she was supposed to be on a business trip. Correspondence with men, which at first glance seemed innocent, but in detail hinted at something more. The main goal is to destroy her reputation. The second step was to create the illusion of calm. I couldn't act impulsively. She had to believe that I had broken down, that I had accepted her terms. I started replying to her messages briefly, without aggression. I even agreed to talk to her once or twice, maintaining the illusion that I was willing to accept her terms. This gave me time. The third step is to undermine her reputation. I started acting through her social circle. To do this, I contacted a few of her friends who liked to gossip. I did it carefully, using fake accounts. I started spreading rumors and hints to make people dig for themselves. I knew that one of her friends, Cindy, was always jealous of Amanda. And if you give her the right information, she will spread it faster than any newspaper. One day I just wrote from an anonymous account. Did you know that Amanda has been having an affair for several years? And with more than one man? And that was enough. The fourth step is to destroy her financially. Our divorce agreement hadn't been signed yet. And she was sure that she would get good alimony. but I consulted a lawyer. And I took action. I registered part of the assets with trustees. I transferred some of the money to accounts that had no legal connection to me. Officially, my financial resources have sharply decreased. Now, when she files for divorce, she will get the crumbs. The fifth step is the final blow. Amanda didn't know what was coming. I prepared the last step to make her publicly humiliated. I knew that she always cared about her image and wanted to appear to be the perfect wife. So I arranged a chance meeting with friends and family. I made sure that at the right moment everyone would have evidence of her infidelity that I had carefully collected. Her friends, her family, everyone learned the truth. And when she realized that her plan had collapsed, it was too late. She was left with nothing. No reputation, no money, no friends. And I watched with a cold smile. I sat in the bar, twisting a glass of whiskey in my hands, and watched the results of my work. Amanda was destroyed. The last days of her downfall. After that meeting, where her dirty secrets came out, everything started to fall apart like a house of cards. Her friends turned their backs on her. Those who had admired her style and perfect life yesterday now looked at her as a traitor. But that was not the worst thing for her. She lost the support of her family. Her father, someone who had always believed in her honesty, told her to her face that he wanted nothing more to do with her. Her mother cried, and her younger sister Lauren couldn't even look her in the eye. It was a real blow to Amanda. She has always been able to manipulate people, to create the illusion of a perfect image, but this time her mask was torn off in public. She tried to justify herself. She said it was slander, that I had fabricated everything. But the facts spoke for themselves. A financial blow. I received a message from a mutual friend of ours who worked in a bank. Amanda was in a panic. She thought she was going to get half of your money, and now she realizes she's going to be left with almost nothing. I smiled. Her lawyer tried to challenge my actions, but legally, I did everything perfectly clean. Instead of the substantial amount she was counting on, she would only receive minimal payments, and that was temporary. I knew her expenses. She was accustomed to an expensive life, to branded items, to vacationing in luxury hotels. Now she would have to count every cent. Meeting Amanda. One evening, when I was returning home, I was in for a surprise. Amanda was standing outside my apartment. She looked different. Her eyes were red from crying, her makeup smeared. She was no longer the cold, confident woman who had once blackmailed me. I stopped, holding the keys in my hands. "What are you doing here?" I asked calmly. She took a step toward me as if to touch me, but I stepped back. "John, I made a mistake. I thought you just hated me, but I didn't mean for it to go this far." I looked at her, feeling strangely satisfied. "You wanted to destroy me. You thought you could keep me on the hook. And now what?" She pressed her lips together, her hands trembling. "I have no one else. Do you want to see me destroyed? Do you want me to beg you?" I smiled. "No, Amanda. I just want you to live in reality, not in your lies. And for you to finally realize that you have never been stronger than me." I opened the door and walked into the apartment, leaving her standing in the dark. She didn't say anything else. I thought I would feel euphoric. That when it was all over, when Amanda had lost everything, when she stood in front of me, broken, destroyed, I would finally feel relieved. But you know what? Instead of triumph, there was emptiness. Emotions I hadn't expected. When I closed the door in her face, I stood in the dark for a long time, looking at my reflection in the mirror. I had won. It was an indisputable fact. I had torn her life to pieces. I did what seemed impossible, I brought her to her knees. But inside, something was wrong. I had a strange feeling that I expected more from this victory. I thought I would be happy, that I would want to celebrate. But now that everything was over, when she no longer had power over me, I was just sitting in my apartment with a glass of whiskey and feeling some kind of strange emptiness. Why didn't it bring any pleasure? Maybe because I still remembered the Amanda I loved. I remembered how we laughed in the first years of our marriage. How she held my hand when I got my first promotion. How she would whisper something silly in my ear before bed, making me laugh even when I was exhausted after a hard day. I remembered everything. And that was my main curse. Because when you truly love someone, that love doesn't disappear in a single moment. It fades gradually, with each new blow, with each new betrayal. I hated her. But somewhere deep down, in the darkest corners of my mind, there was a shadow of the feeling that once made me happy. Was it worth it? I could have sworn it was. Amantha had gotten what she deserved. I was no longer her victim. I didn't let her destroy me. On the contrary, I proved that I was stronger. But what's next? Revenge gave me freedom, but did it give me peace? I didn't know. All I knew was that tomorrow would be a new day. And for the first time in a long time, I would wake up without fear that someone was holding me on a hook. I was free. And freedom, as it turned out, had a bitter taste. I was sitting in my apartment, staring at an empty bottle of whiskey that no longer brought me solace. Everything I had once sought in alcohol to forget or relieve stress was now in vain. The same thought kept running through my head: what's next? I thought I had destroyed Amantha. I had broken her down, brought her to her knees in front of everyone she had ever considered important. But what's next? Do I really feel victorious? Or is this just part of a long process of self-destruction? A new beginning or an end? Suddenly, fear hit me with all its might. Not fear of Amantha, not fear of the world, but fear of myself. Had I become the same person I was afraid to be? Someone who uses manipulation and lies to get to his goals? I saw how others reacted to me after all this. My friends that I once knew were now keeping their distance. They started asking questions that had no answers. I was not able to restore my image as I had initially thought. Even now, when my honor was saved, I could not find peace. I couldn't bring myself to see it as a real victory. Maybe at some point I even wanted Amantha back in my life so I could show her that I had beaten her anyway. But when I remembered what she had done, when I realized how she had destroyed everything I loved, I realized that I couldn't go back to the person I used to be. No, I was no longer the John the First used to be. My friends would say that I made the right choice. That I didn't let her ruin my life, that I showed her where she belonged. But what did I really get? A life without her? A life without love? Was that supposed to be my goal? And I realized that I couldn't get back what I had lost. I didn't need Amantha. I realized this as I sat alone in the silence of my four walls. But I felt something else. I felt an emptiness. I felt an emptiness that couldn't be filled with whiskey, alcohol, or one-night stands with strange women. I wasn't interested in these things, although I would have taken them as entertainment before. I became more aware. My revenge, although it was a triumph, did not bring the satisfaction I expected. All the ties that were broken. I remembered how Amantha and I used to laugh together, how we planned our future. How I believed that she would be there for me when I was in trouble. How we looked at old photos together and dreamed of children, of a house, of the perfect world we would create together. And now, after everything, there were only fragments of what had once been. I couldn't go back to those moments anymore, even if I wanted to. My revenge had destroyed everything. And even though I had brought her to light, I could no longer bear the loneliness I had created for myself. I didn't know how to go on. Would I just live with this emptiness inside me? Decision and consequences. I woke up every morning with the feeling that nothing had changed. That I couldn't start a new stage in my life, that I couldn't build anything I really wanted. And then I realized that the only answer I could give myself was to move forward. My revenge brought me nothing but emptiness. And I didn't want to be the man who would live in the shadow of this victory. I decided to forget all that. To start a new chapter, to try to start my life from scratch. Maybe it will take time. Maybe I'm not ready yet. But I am not the same person I used to be. And I will not regret it. Revenge didn't bring me peace, but it helped me realize what I really want in life. I put the whiskey back in the cabinet and never took it out again. I realized that my biggest enemy is myself, and only I can change my life. And maybe I could love again someday, but this time with wisdom and clarity in my heart. I started writing a new story. And I have no regrets about what happened. All my mistakes became part of this process. And this was my path to recovery. If I could turn back time, I would not change anything. I did not regret my actions because they led me to this moment. But if you're reading this story, you have to understand one thing: revenge can destroy everything, but it will never bring you peace. And if you are trying to escape from the trap of pain, remember, true strength lies in the ability to move on, leaving the past behind.